Marissa Lane pressed her palm against the warm metal of the taxi door and stepped into the thick Atlanta heat. It was just past sunset, the kind of evening where the sky glowed orange and the air felt heavy enough to drink. She had spent the last 2 weeks in rural Alabama, sleeping on an old recliner beside her mother who had barely survived a medical emergency. Today her mother was finally stable. Today Marissa could finally go home. She rolled her suitcase across the polished marble lobby of Crestview Towers, the luxury high-rise she and her husband Derek Holt had lived in for almost 10 years. The place where they built a life together. The place she believed was still hers. When the elevator reached the penthouse floor, she exhaled with relief. Home, comfort, familiarity. She tapped her key fob against the digital lock. Beep, red light. She frowned and tried again. Beep, red light. That is strange. Maybe the card demagnetized. She rang the doorbell and waited. Footsteps approached. The lock clicked. The door opened and there stood Derek wearing a silk robe she had never seen before. His expression was flat, cold. On his neck was a fresh maroon lipstick smear. "You are back early," he said without warmth. Marissa felt her stomach drop. "Derek, why is my key not working?" "Because I changed the locks," he answered simply. Before she could process the words, a woman appeared behind him, young, stylish, wearing Marissa's favorite satin robe. Sabrina Cole said with a smirk, "Oh, look, it is the ex-wife." Ex-wife. The words sliced right through Marissa. Derek stepped into the hallway and pulled the door shut behind him, leaving Sabrina smirking inside the penthouse. "We are done, Marissa," he said. "Everything in that home, every dollar, every asset is in my name. You came with nothing, you leave with nothing." The hallway suddenly felt colder than the night outside. Marissa stood frozen while Derek signaled building security. "Please escort her out," he ordered. And just like that, Marissa Lane lost her home, her marriage, and the life she thought she knew. Marissa stepped out of the building in a daze as the glass doors closed behind her with a quiet hiss. The night air felt colder now. Atlanta traffic roared in the distance, but every sound seemed muffled, like she was underwater. She tightened her grip on the worn handle of her suitcase. It was the only thing she had left. She walked without direction through the glowing streets until she reached a small bench near Centennial Park. Neon lights from nearby restaurants flickered against the pavement. People laughed over dinner. Couples strolled hand in hand. Everyone else seemed to belong somewhere. Marissa felt invisible. Her stomach growled loudly. She had not eaten since breakfast. She opened her wallet, hoping for something more than what she remembered. Inside were a few worn receipts and one lonely crumpled bill. $9. Not enough for dinner. Not enough for a motel room. Not enough for anything. With trembling hands she pulled out her phone. The battery icon blinked red at 5%. She opened the banking app and waited for the screen to load. When it did, her heart dropped. Balance 0. Every account she shared with Derek had been emptied. Even the small nest egg she had saved before marriage was gone. Derek had taken everything. A cold wave of panic washed over her. As she sifted through her wallet again, she noticed something tucked behind an old photo of her father. A faded debit card. The plastic was scratched and the logo almost invisible. She remembered it now. Her father, Harold Lane, had handed her this card on the day she left for college. She had been 18, full of dreams and plans. "Keep this for emergencies," he told her. "Do not touch it unless you have nothing left." Back then she never understood why his tone was so serious. Tonight, for the first time, his meaning became painfully clear. This was it. Nothing left. No home, no money, no husband, only this forgotten card and a memory of her father's steady voice telling her it was her anchor. And anchors were meant to keep you from sinking. The sun had barely risen when Marissa found herself walking toward an old stone building tucked between two newer offices on a quiet side street. Heritage Federal Bank. She remembered coming here with her father when she was a teenager. Back then, the place felt outdated. This morning it felt like her only chance at survival. Inside the bank, the air smelled faintly of paper and dust. Only 2 tellers were working and a single employee sat behind a customer service desk. The silence was almost heavy. Marissa stepped forward and handed over the faded debit card to the young man at the desk. His name tag read Eli. "Good morning, ma'am. How can I help you?" he asked gently, though his eyes flicked over her wrinkled clothes and tired face with a hint of concern. "I need to check the balance on this card," Marissa said. "It is very old and I do not remember the PIN." Eli examined the card, turning it over slowly. Wow, ma'am, this must be from 20 years ago. I am not even sure our system still reads this. Please try, she said quietly. Eli nodded and typed in the numbers printed on the card. The computer beeped. He frowned, then typed again. Another beep. That is strange, he murmured. It is not showing the account. It might be archived in our legacy database. Give me a moment. He entered a different access path. Lines of green text scrolled across the screen. Marissa held her breath. Then Eli froze. His eyes widened. The color drained from his face. Ma'am, he said barely above a whisper, stay right here, please. Before she could ask anything, he rushed toward the office in the corner and knocked rapidly. A tall man with silver streaks in his hair stepped out. The brass plate on his door read Alden Brooks, branch manager. What is so urgent, Eli? Mr. Brooks said in a firm voice. Sir, you need to see this, Eli said, pointing at the monitor with a shaking hand. Alden approached, annoyed at first, but the moment he saw the screen his expression changed completely. Confusion, shock, then something close to disbelief washed over his face. He looked at Marissa, then back at the screen. Ma'am, he said slowly, are you Marissa Lane, daughter of Harold Lane? Yes, she answered cautiously. Alden exhaled heavily as if gathering himself. Ma'am, please come with me. We need to talk in private, and we need to close the bank to do it. Marissa felt her pulse quicken. Whatever was happening was far bigger than she imagined. Alden closed the office door behind them and drew the blinds as if shielding the room from the rest of the world. Marissa sat across from him, feeling her heartbeat in her ears. Eli stood near the wall, silent and tense. Ma'am, Alden began, his voice lower than before, your father left you something far more complex than a savings account. This card is linked to a master account that controls a corporation, Lane Heritage Holdings, LLC, founded in 1999. Marissa blinked. A corporation that made no sense. Her father had been a quiet, hard-working man who sold farm equipment and managed small acreage on the side. Nothing about him suggested he owned a company. Alden turned the monitor toward her. Rows of documents filled the screen, deeds, investment records, in a folder labeled Inheritance Activation. Your father built this over 20 years, he explained. Farmland, agribusiness shares, and long-term investments. And the account includes a special clause. It activates only when the heir reaches a zero personal balance. That moment was yesterday. Marissa stared at the screen, unable to speak. Her father had planned for this. Not the betrayal, but the possibility that she might one day be pushed to the edge by someone who underestimated her. Eli handed her an envelope. Your father left this for you, he said softly. Inside was a handwritten letter. The familiar script made her eyes sting. My girl, if you are reading this, you are standing at a crossroads. Do not cry. Do not shrink. Build something of your own. You were never meant to depend on anyone who would miss your trust. This is not a gift, it is a second beginning. Marissa folded the letter with steady hands. The fear inside her cooled, transforming into focus. She looked at Alden. Tell me what I need to do to activate everything right now. Marissa stepped out of the bank that morning with a folder of documents tucked under her arm, and a level of clarity she had not felt in years. She had no home, no husband, and no money in her own account, but she had something far stronger. A foundation her father built quietly, patiently, and intentionally. Now it was her turn to build on it. The first thing she did was disappear. She bought a prepaid phone and a new number. She paid cash for a simple outfit at a nearby store, then found a small hotel for the night under a different name. The anonymity felt strange but liberating. Derek would not be able to track her movements or block her next steps. After a shower and a hot meal, she studied every document Alden had given her. Ownership records, business filings, and land valuations. The numbers made her head spin. She would need help from someone who understood how to turn dormant assets into real power. The next morning, she walked into a sleek glass tower in Midtown to meet the man Alden recommended, Marcus Reed. People in the financial district called him the architect because he could rebuild any company from the ground up or dismantle one if needed. Marcus looked up when she entered his office. He was in his late 30s, wearing a simple shirt with rolled sleeves. Serious eyes, calm posture. He studied her for a moment, then gestured toward a chair. You have 10 minutes, he said. What do you need? Marissa placed the folder on his desk and met his gaze. I am not here to survive, Mr. Reed. I am here to own what is mine, and I want to understand exactly how big that is. Marcus skimmed the documents, his eyebrows lifted slightly. This is not small, he said. Farmland shares long-term instruments. Some of these assets have tripled in value. I want the company rebuilt, she said. I want every asset reviewed, every contract updated, and every opportunity opened. And I want to learn. Teach me everything. Marcus leaned back, arms crossed. Most people with assets like this want shortcuts. They want me to do the work while they enjoy the profits. You are asking for something harder. I lost everything yesterday, she said. I will not ever let that happen again. For the first time, Marcus cracked a faint smile. Then we begin today. The next 2 weeks became a storm of work. Marissa spent long hours in conference rooms studying financial statements and land maps. She learned how her father's farmland connected to larger agricultural networks. She absorbed contract law oversight rules and investment strategies. Her mind sharpened quickly, no longer dulled by years of complacency. Marcus noticed. You are not just learning, he said one night, you are transforming. And Marissa knew he was right. She was no longer the woman who begged Derek for honesty or waited for his approval. She was becoming someone her father would recognize, someone who could carry the weight of a legacy and the force of her own rebirth. While Marissa was rebuilding her life piece by piece, Derek Holt was celebrating the beginning of what he believed would be his most successful season yet. He and Sabrina had taken over the penthouse like it was their personal stage. Champagne bottles lined the counters, selfies filled her feed, and Derek bragged about a new project he claimed would place him at the top of Atlanta's development scene. One night, Derek stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city lights. He held a glass of wine, swirling it with confidence. Sabrina, this is it, he said. There is land coming up for development down in South Georgia. Thousands of acres. Whoever gets the construction contract for it will own half the region. Sabrina was barely listening. She sat on the couch taking pictures of herself in a designer outfit Derek had just bought. Sounds great, babe. Does that mean we can start planning the wedding in Miami? Derek waved dismissively. Soon. First, I need investors with deep pockets. I heard a new player just popped up in Atlanta. Someone buying property in cash, quiet but powerful. He snapped his fingers, thinking out loud. Lane Heritage Holdings. They bought a mansion in Cascade. I bet they want in on the development wave. Sabrina looked up confused. Lane who? Never mind. All that matters is I need to get in front of them. If I pitch the project right, they will back me. They have no idea who I am yet, but they will. What Derek did not know was that everything he dreamed of acquiring was already in Marissa's hands. The land he coveted was part of her inheritance. The company he wanted to charm was the very one her father built for her, and the one she had just revived with Marcus. Within days, Derek instructed his assistant to reach out to Lane Heritage Holdings. He rehearsed his presentation, imagining the praise he would receive. When the reply came inviting him to present in person, he felt unstoppable. Finally, he said as he adjusted his tie in the mirror, someone recognizes real talent. But the truth was far from his imagination. The invitation was not admiration. It was the first step into the trap Marissa was carefully setting. A trap he would walk into with a smile. Derek arrived at the mansion in Cascade with the confidence of a man who believed the world still belonged to him. The iron gates opened slowly as his car rolled through the driveway lined with tall oaks. He had no idea the property belonged to the woman he had thrown out like discarded luggage just weeks earlier. Inside the foyer, an assistant greeted him with a formal nod. Good afternoon, Mr. Holt. The CEO will meet you shortly. Please wait in the library. CEO. Derek repeated the word with pride. Whoever this investor was, he planned to impress them and secure his future. He entered a grand room filled with tall bookshelves and a long mahogany table. The air felt colder here, more intentional, more powerful. At the far end of the table sat a man reviewing files on a laptop. Marcus Reed. Derek assumed he was the CEO. Good afternoon, sir, Derek said, offering a smile. Marcus did not return it. Consultant, he replied. Please have a seat. The CEO will join us soon. The tension in the room felt thick. Derek adjusted his tie, trying to steady himself. Minutes passed slowly. Then the doors behind him opened. He heard the sound of heels first, steady, confident, a rhythm that sliced the silence in half. Sorry for the delay, a voice said. A voice Derek knew. He turned slowly, his breath caught. Standing at the head of the table was Marissa Lane. Her posture straight, her hair cut sharply, her presence entirely different from the woman he once dismissed. She wore a navy dress that spoke of authority, not apology. Her expression was calm, controlled, unshaken. "Good afternoon, Mr. Holt," Marissa said as she took her seat. "I am Marissa Lane, CEO of Lane Heritage Holdings. Thank you for coming." Derek opened his mouth but no sound came out. His mind raced for an explanation but none existed. "Please begin your presentation," Marissa continued. "I understand you are eager to discuss development on land that belongs to my company." Derek swallowed hard. This had to be a dream, a mistake, anything but real. Marcus studied him with a hint of cold amusement. When Derek fumbled through the first slides, Marcus cut in. "Your numbers are inflated, your risk analysis is incomplete, your cost projections are unrealistic." Derek felt sweat forming at the back of his neck. He tried to shift the tone. "Marissa, we can talk privately if you want. This is all a misunderstanding." Marissa leaned back, her expression unreadable. "There is no misunderstanding, Mr. Holt. You wanted a meeting with the CEO. Here I am." In that moment, Derek finally understood. The game had changed, and he was no longer holding the rules. While Derek walked out of the meeting shaken and confused, Marissa and Marcus were already executing the next stage of their plan. They had no intention of investing in his company. They planned to own it from the foundation up, and they knew exactly where Derek was weakest. Small suppliers. Derek had built his business by borrowing materials and labor from small independent vendors. He would promise quick payment, then stall them for months, sometimes a year. They were too small to sue, too stretched to fight back. One missed payment could shut down their shop, so most endured the losses quietly. Marcus laid out a spreadsheet in front of Marissa. 12 suppliers. Total outstanding debt about $450,000. "These people deserve better," he said. Marissa nodded. "And Derek deserves the bill." Marcus smiled and opened a folder. "I created 3 shell companies last night, all registered in Delaware. Clean, untraceable. Through them we will buy every one of these debts in cash." Marissa tapped the table lightly. "Do it, and make sure every vendor knows they are being paid because someone finally values their work." By the end of the week, Marcus and his team drove across the region, meeting every supplier face to face. They paid each invoice in full with certified checks. Some owners cried, some hugged them, some simply stared in disbelief. Meanwhile, Derek enjoyed the sudden silence. No missed calls, no angry voicemails, no suppliers demanding their money. He took it as a sign of respect. "Looks like they finally understand who they are dealing with," he bragged to Sabrina. But the truth was far from his imagination. Every bill he owed had been transferred into the hands of Lane Heritage Holdings. Marcus returned to the mansion and placed the stack of debt transfer documents in front of Marissa. "It is done," he said. Marissa ran her hand along the top page. The company that had once drained her life for a decade was now quietly sliding into her control. She did not want to destroy Derek out of bitterness. She wanted him to face the consequences he had avoided for years. And now she held the leverage he never expected. Marissa agreed to Derek's request for dinner, though every instinct told her his sudden tenderness had nothing to do with love. She arrived at the upscale restaurant where he had once proposed. The place smelled of truffle butter and polished wood, but the memory now felt distant, almost unreal. Derek was already seated. He stood quickly, pulling out a chair as if they were still a married couple sharing a life built on trust. He ordered the most expensive wine on the menu, talking quickly, nervously, filling the silence with excuses. "Marissa, I was under stress," he said. "I made mistakes. Sabrina meant nothing. You were busy with your mother. I felt alone. But seeing you the other day reminded me of what we had." Marissa listened quietly. Not a single emotion crossed her face. "So this was my fault?" she asked calmly. No, of course not," Derek said. "I just lost my way. We can fix this. We can rebuild everything. Together." Marissa leaned back. "Maybe, but we should separate business from personal matters. Let us finish the investment discussion first. Come to my office at 10 in the morning. Bring your company ledger." Ledger. Derek smiled with relief. To him the deal was already won. But the next morning as he entered the mansion, the atmosphere was different, colder. Marcus stood beside Marissa with 3 binders stacked on the table. "Good morning, Mr. Holt," Marissa said. "Let us begin." Marcus opened the first binder. "This is the list of outstanding debts owed by Holt Construction. 12 suppliers. $450,000 in total." Derek frowned. "I am negotiating with them. They can wait." Marissa looked directly at him. They are no longer waiting, because they have all been paid by me. Derek blinked. Paid by who? By Lane Heritage Holdings, she answered. In other words, your debts now belong to me. Marcus placed the second binder in front of him. These are the debt transfer deeds. All legally binding. Derek's face drained of color. I can pay, I just need time. You have 24 hours, Marissa said. If you do not repay the full amount, we will seize your penthouse, your office equipment, and your remaining assets. 24 hours, Derek repeated, stunned. 24 hours, Marissa replied. It was the first time Derek realized she was not bluffing. The next 24 hours dragged Derek across every corner of Atlanta. He skipped sleep, skipped meals, and drove from bank to bank, office to office, begging for help anywhere he thought he still had influence. But influence fades quickly when people sense collapse. By noon, the first banker turned him down cold. By mid-afternoon, 3 of his former partners refused to take his calls. By evening, his remaining contacts cited travel, family emergencies, or conveniently lost signal. Word was spreading. Derek Holt was no longer a safe bet. Back at the penthouse, Sabrina paced the living room, clutching her designer handbag like it could save her. You said we were fine, she snapped. You said you had everything under control. Derek yelled back, his voice rough from exhaustion. I just need time. She set me up. She is bluffing. But deep down he knew Marissa never bluffed. At exactly 10 in the morning the following day, the doorbell rang. Derek opened it with trembling hands. Standing in the hallway was Marcus Reed, 2 attorneys and a county officer holding official paperwork. Mr. Holt, your deadline has passed, Marcus said. We are here to enforce the lien. The officer stepped forward and began placing seizure notices on the walls. Sabrina watched in horror. You cannot take this, she cried. This is our home. Technically, ma'am, the officer replied. This property now stands as collateral for a debt owed to Lane Heritage Holdings. Derek attempted one last plea. Marissa, please give me more time. I can fix this. Marissa was not there. She did not need to be. Her signature was on every document. Within an hour, Derek and Sabrina were escorted out of the building, dragging suitcases filled with whatever personal items they could grab. The same security staff who once welcomed them now avoided eye contact. On the sidewalk, Derek stared at his reflection in the glass tower he used to call home. For the first time, he understood the true cost of taking everything from someone who had nothing left to lose. 2 weeks after the penthouse seizure, Marissa sat at the long table inside the mansion's meeting room. The afternoon sun streamed across stacks of blueprints, financial reports, and updated land assessments. Marcus stood beside her, reviewing the final documents from Holt Construction's liquidation. All assets have been processed, Marcus said. The penthouse is cleared, the office equipment has been sold, and the funds have been transferred. Derek Holt has no remaining holdings tied to his former company. Marissa nodded. It was not triumph she felt, just completion. The ending of a chapter that should have closed years ago. What would you like to do with the penthouse keys? Marcus asked. Marissa tapped her finger lightly on the table. Sell the furniture. All of it. The appliances, the decor, anything left behind. And the unit itself. Do not sell it, she said. Give the keys to Mr. Eldon Brooks at Heritage Federal. Tell him to offer the apartment as a staff reward, preferably for someone who works hard without recognition. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Ela would be thrilled. Marissa allowed a small smile. He was the first person who treated me with dignity on the worst day of my life. That should matter. With that finished, Marcus opened a new set of blueprints. The next phase, he said. The drawings showed rows of modest modern homes, a small medical clinic, a community school, walking paths between pecan groves. This is what I want, Marissa said. Homes for the workers on our farmland, affordable, clean, and stable. Some of them were hurt by Derek's unpaid contracts. They supported him for years. It is time someone supports them. Marcus studied her for a moment. This is not revenge anymore. No, she said, this is repair. She turned another page. On the next design was a large training center with classrooms and small business labs. The Lane Academy, Marissa said quietly. A place for farmers, small business owners, and anyone who needs a second chance. My father built his life from nothing. He would want others to have that chance too. Marcus closed the folder with a thoughtful nod. You are building more than a company. I am building what I needed, Marissa replied. A place where people do not lose everything just because they trusted the wrong person. Outside the window, the farmland stretched in every direction, steady and green under the late afternoon sky. Her father had called it an anchor. But now Marissa understood. Anchors were not only for holding you steady. Sometimes they were the place you rebuilt an entire kingdom. A year after the day Marissa stood on a sidewalk with $9 and a worn-out debit card, everything around her had transformed. The farmland her father left behind was no longer dormant. It was alive with workers tending pecan trees, families moving into new homes, and students walking into the Lane Academy carrying notebooks and hope. The air itself felt different here, like the land had finally exhaled after holding its breath for years. One afternoon Marissa walked to the top of the small hill overlooking the fields. The same hill her father once stood on while telling her that life would not always be fair, but she would always have a path forward. Marcus joined her, quietly watching the wind ripple through the trees. "You did it," he said. "We did it," she corrected, "and so did everyone who believed in this land long before I understood its value." Marcus nodded. "Most people who lose everything stay stuck in that moment. You built something better." Marissa looked over the homes, the school, the fields stretching toward the horizon. "I learned that losing everything is not the end," she said. "It is a doorway. And sometimes the people who try to break you are the ones who push you straight into your purpose." She stood a little taller, breathing in the warm southern air. "If you are listening to this," she said gently, "remember this. You are allowed to start over. You are allowed to rise again. And you are allowed to build a life stronger than anything someone tried to take from you." If this story touched you, tell me where you are watching from. Like, share, and subscribe so I can keep bringing more stories of strength and new beginnings. Your story is not over, and neither was mine.